Have you ever heard a prophecy so chilling that it almost feels like a warning for our time? Sometimes when we hear predictions about the future, they can sound exaggerated, like stories told around a campfire, only meant to entertain. But there are some prophecies that seem to hold a surprising amount of truth. And when science steps in to confirm them, it can be both unsettling and fascinating. For many of us, the idea of a prophecy might sound like something out of a movie or a book. But the truth is, throughout history, there have been certain predictions that have come shockingly close to reality. Today we're going to talk about one such prophecy, one that has to do with America, and how it has been verified by scientists in ways that might make you question how far our society has come and where it's headed. This isn't just about folklore or the musings of someone trying to make a name for themselves. No, this is a serious prediction that's rooted in science, and what makes it even more fascinating is that it's not a future event we're waiting for. It's happening now. In this video, we'll explore the details of this eerie prophecy, how it's been backed by modern science, and what it means for the future of America. If you're someone who's lived through history, you'll understand the weight of this discussion, because it directly impacts the world you've seen evolve over the years. Whether you're simply curious or deeply invested in understanding where we're headed, you're in the right place. Let's start by setting the stage. The prophecy we're talking about today is one that predicted significant shifts in America's stability, both politically and environmentally. Some of the ideas presented may sound familiar, especially if you've been following global issues over the last few decades. The striking thing, however, is how closely these ideas align with what modern scientists have been studying. One of the first aspects of this prophecy involves the physical condition of America's environment. Have you noticed how the weather has been getting more extreme? Record heat waves, intense hurricanes, wildfires and floods seem to be more frequent than ever. Many scientists, especially climatologists, have been warning for years that the climate crisis is no longer a distant threat, but a present reality. The prophecy we're discussing was eerily prescient in its predictions about the environmental instability that would unfold, particularly in the United States. And now, years later, we can look at the data and see that the scientists were right. The world is heating up, and America, unfortunately, is one of the nations bearing the brunt of it. So what was the prophecy exactly? It was a warning about the environmental collapse that would result from human activity. In essence, it predicted that America would face catastrophic weather events, some of which we're seeing today. The heat waves, the raging wildfires, the powerful hurricanes, they're all signs of a much larger, more dangerous shift in our climate. But there's another part of this prophecy that's even more concerning. It didn't just predict environmental devastation. It also hinted at societal unrest, a growing division within the population that would make it harder for Americans to come together and solve these crises. This is a part of the prophecy that seems to be unfolding right before our eyes as well. We've all seen the political tension and polarization that has taken root in America in recent years. It's as if the country is divided into two camps, each unable to see eye to eye on basic issues that affect everyone. Whether it's about healthcare, climate change, or economic inequality, there seems to be a constant clash of ideologies, making it difficult to make any progress. Scientists have also pointed to these societal cracks as symptoms of a deeper systemic issue. And this is where things start to get really interesting. The prophecy suggested that as the environment worsened, so would the political and social climate. As natural disasters become more frequent and more severe, the cracks in society would deepen, creating a perfect storm of environmental collapse and societal disintegration. Now let's take a closer look at the science that verifies these troubling aspects of the prophecy. Climate change isn't just a buzzword or a political talking point anymore. It's a scientific fact. The evidence is overwhelming, and we're seeing the effects of it in real time. Studies from top institutions have shown that the frequency of extreme weather events has increased dramatically in recent years, and this trend is expected to continue. Rising temperatures, melting ice caps, and more extreme weather patterns are all clear indicators that our planet is undergoing rapid changes. But what's even more concerning is the link between climate change and social unrest. Studies have shown that as environmental conditions worsen, so too does the likelihood of conflict. Scarcity of resources, displacement of populations, and the strain on infrastructure can all contribute to rising tensions. And unfortunately, the prophecy wasn't wrong about this either. America is already seeing signs of this. As the country grapples with climate-related disasters, we're also seeing an increase in social unrest, whether it's through protests, political instability, or even violent acts. The very fabric of society seems to be under pressure, and the longer these crises go unaddressed, the more divided and fractured things will become. But it's not all doom and gloom. While the situation may seem dire, there is still hope. In the next part of this video, we'll talk about what steps can be taken to reverse some of these trends and avoid the worst-case scenario. Now that we've covered some of the major aspects of the prophecy, the environmental and societal predictions, let's take a look at some of the other disturbing details that are unfolding. As we continue, let's dive deeper into the social aspect of this prophecy. As I mentioned earlier, it didn't just predict environmental collapse, it also warned of the growing divisions within society. But how does this actually relate to the way we live today? If we think about the state of things in America, there's no denying that polarization is at an all-time high. People seem more divided than ever before, and it's not just about politics. This division is spilling over into everyday life, affecting how we interact with one another, and even how we feel about the future. Many Americans are feeling increasingly disconnected, and social trust is declining. The prophecy suggested that as society becomes more divided, the ability to work together to tackle crises would become much harder, and we're already seeing this play out. Take climate change, for example. While scientists, activists, and governments continue to warn about the dangers of inaction, there's still a significant portion of the population that either doesn't believe in the issue or chooses to ignore it. This delay in action not only makes it harder to address environmental problems, but it also further deepens societal divides. It's not just about climate change, though. These divisions touch on almost every aspect of life, from healthcare to economic disparities. The recent pandemic exposed just how fractured things can be, as people found themselves fighting over the most basic of issues, wearing masks, following social distancing protocols, or even getting vaccinated. These arguments, though seemingly about health, were really symptoms of a larger issue, a breakdown in the social contract where people can't even agree on what's best for the collective good. Scientists who study social dynamics and conflict have warned about these trends for years. They've pointed out that as resources become more strained, whether those resources are physical, like clean water and food, or intangible, like trust and social cohesion, societies tend to fracture. This is something the prophecy touched on, and it's something we're starting to witness more and more as the years go by. The question is, how did we get here, and where are we headed? This brings us to another unsettling aspect of the prophecy. It wasn't just about division. It was about the potential collapse of institutions that have long been the foundation of American society. Our political system, our economy, and even our healthcare system have all been under increasing stress in recent years, and the cracks are becoming more visible. It's not hard to see how this could lead to a complete breakdown if things aren't addressed. One of the most concerning elements of this prophecy was its prediction that America could face a period of instability, where the very institutions that people rely on for stability would crumble. Whether it's the erosion of trust in government, the widening gap between the rich and poor, or the breakdown of healthcare systems under pressure, it's clear that the systems we've come to depend on are not as resilient as we once believed. Take the healthcare system, for example. The pandemic highlighted just how fragile it really is, especially in terms of accessibility and equity. People in rural areas or low-income communities often find it difficult to access even the most basic healthcare, and this disparity is only growing. The prophecy spoke of this type of institutional collapse, and while it may have sounded far-fetched at the time, the pandemic showed us just how quickly things can unravel when institutions are pushed to their limits. And what's even more worrying is that as America faces more challenges, whether it's climate-related disasters, economic instability, or political strife, the ability of these institutions to respond effectively becomes more and more limited. You might be wondering, how does this tie into the prophecy? Well, the predictions about the breakdown of these systems were clear. They warned that as the country faces crisis after crisis, there would be a growing inability to act decisively. And that's exactly what we're seeing now. So what does this mean for the future? Are we doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past, or is there still hope for a better outcome? To answer that question, we have to look at what's been happening on the ground, and what steps, if any, are being taken to reverse course. It's not all bleak, though. There are plenty of people working tirelessly to address the issues we've discussed so far. Scientists, activists, and community leaders are all coming together, trying to find solutions and implement changes that could make a real difference. But these efforts require widespread support, not just from those who already see the urgency, but from those who may still be skeptical or disengaged. In many ways, the prophecy may have been a wake-up call, urging us to come together before it's too late. And while the challenges we face are undeniably daunting, they are not insurmountable. The key will be recognizing the signs early, acting quickly, and most importantly, working together to restore balance in our society. As we look ahead, there are a few crucial areas where change could make a significant impact. One of them is the role of education in shaping future generations' understanding of these issues. Educating young people about climate change, social justice, and the importance of cooperation could go a long way in fostering a more unified and sustainable future. But this change also requires each of us to do our part. Whether it's making small lifestyle changes to reduce our carbon footprint, getting involved in local community efforts, or simply staying informed about the issues that matter most, we all have a role to play in shaping the future. Now that we've explored the social and institutional aspects of the prophecy, let's move on to a final and even more striking prediction, one that centers on the future of the American economy. This is where things get especially intriguing, and you'll want to stick around to hear how scientists are confirming what was once thought to be pure speculation. As we transition into the final part of our discussion, let's take a closer look at one of the most unsettling aspects of this prophecy: the future of the American economy. We've already seen how environmental degradation and social instability have begun to play out in real time, but there's another crucial piece to this puzzle: the economy. And this is where the prophecy makes some bold and frankly chilling predictions. According to the prophecy, America would eventually face an economic collapse, triggered by a combination of factors including environmental damage, social unrest, and political dysfunction. Now, you might be thinking, that sounds a bit extreme, doesn't it? But when you take a step back and look at the trends over the last few decades, it becomes hard to ignore the signs that the American economy is indeed under strain. Let's break it down. We've all witnessed the widening gap between the rich and the poor. The middle class, which was once the backbone of the American economy, has been shrinking for years. Income inequality is at its highest level in decades, and the pressure on working-class families continues to mount. Meanwhile, the wealthiest individuals and corporations are accumulating more and more power and influence, further exacerbating the economic divide. But it's not just about the wealth gap. Another major concern that the prophecy pointed to was the unsustainable nature of America's economic model. For years, the country has relied on consumption-driven growth, borrowing money to fuel its economy. This has worked for a time, but the prophecy warned that eventually this model would lead to a reckoning, and that reckoning might be closer than we think. The U.S. national debt has been ballooning for years, reaching over $30 trillion, and the country's ability to repay that debt is increasingly uncertain. Economists have warned that the current trajectory is unsustainable, and the longer the government continues to borrow without addressing the underlying issues, the more likely a financial crisis becomes. In addition, there's the issue of global economic shifts. As the world becomes more interconnected, other nations are emerging as economic powers, challenging America's position as the dominant global player. The rise of countries like China and India, and the shift toward alternative currencies and economic systems, has begun to erode America's economic influence on the world stage. The prophecy foresaw this shift, predicting that as other nations rise in power, America's position would weaken, contributing to an eventual economic collapse. But perhaps the most striking part of this prediction is how the prophecy linked the economic collapse to the environmental crisis. As we've seen with the increasing frequency of natural disasters, the costs of climate change are already being felt across the country. From rebuilding after hurricanes and wildfires to addressing the rising costs of healthcare due to pollution and heat waves, the financial burden of climate change is becoming more and more apparent. In fact, studies show that the economic costs of climate change could be staggering, with some estimates suggesting that climate-related damage could cost the US economy trillions of dollars over the coming decades. And this doesn't even include the human cost, the toll that extreme weather and displacement could take on communities and families. This connection between environmental and economic collapse was at the heart of the prophecy, and as the evidence mounts, it becomes clearer that this was not just idle speculation. Now, before we get too caught up in the doom and gloom, let's take a moment to reflect on what all of this means. Yes, the prophecy may seem bleak, but it's important to remember that we still have agency. We can still make choices, both individually and collectively, that can change the course of our future. One of the most important things we can do is start addressing these issues head-on. The climate crisis may seem like an insurmountable challenge, but there are practical steps we can all take to reduce our impact. From adopting more sustainable practices in our daily lives, to advocating for policies that address climate change, to supporting businesses that prioritize environmental responsibility, every action counts. Similarly, we can push for reforms that address income inequality and work to create a more equitable economy. Whether it's through supporting higher wages, fairer tax policies, or accessible healthcare, we can begin to shift the economic landscape in a way that benefits everyone, not just the wealthiest few. It's also important to stay engaged in the political process. The issues we've discussed today, from climate change to economic inequality, won't be solved overnight, and they certainly won't be solved if we sit idly by. By voting, getting involved in local communities, and staying informed, we can play an active role in shaping the future of our country. And while the prophecy may have painted a grim picture, it's also a call to action. It's a reminder that we cannot afford to wait for the inevitable. We must take steps now to ensure a better, more sustainable future. The good news is that we're not alone in this effort. There are millions of people across the country and around the world working tirelessly to tackle these challenges. The more people who join in, the more momentum we'll build to create lasting change. As we come to the end of our discussion, it's important to remember one key takeaway. While the prophecy may have predicted some difficult times ahead, it also shows us that change is possible. We have the power to shape our future, and the choices we make today will determine what kind of world we leave for the next generation. So, as we reflect on everything we've discussed today, I want to leave you with this thought. Don't let fear of the future paralyze you. Instead, let it motivate you to take action, whether it's making small changes in your own life or advocating for broader societal changes. Every step forward is a step toward a better tomorrow. We've all witnessed incredible progress throughout our lifetimes, and there's no reason why we can't continue that legacy. It's never too late to make a difference, and together we can create the future we want to see. Thanks for joining me in this conversation today. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this prophecy and what you think the future holds. Please, feel free to share your comments below, and if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Here's to creating a brighter, more resilient future for all of us. It seems we've reached the end of the journey for this particular video, but the discussion doesn't have to end here. The topics we've explored together, the environmental crises, the social unrest, the economic instability, and the warnings from the prophecy, are all incredibly important. They shape the world we live in today and will continue to shape our future. While the road ahead may be uncertain, the one thing we can control is how we respond to these challenges. The truth is, change is already happening. People across the globe are waking up to the reality of what lies ahead, and they're stepping up to make a difference. Whether it's in the fight against climate change, the push for social justice, or the demand for economic reforms, the spirit of collective action is alive and well, and you, yes you, can be a part of that movement. It might seem daunting, especially when faced with such overwhelming problems, but even the smallest actions matter. You can start by being mindful of your environmental impact, by supporting causes you believe in, by encouraging your family and friends to think critically about the world around them. Together, our individual actions can snowball into meaningful change. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with a message of hope and empowerment. Despite the challenges, this is an exciting time to be alive because we have the opportunity to rewrite the future. Just as past generations have overcome great obstacles, we too have the ability to face these trials head-on, armed with knowledge, determination, and the will to create a better world for ourselves and the generations to come. So, what do you think? Do you believe we can prevent the worst outcomes predicted by the prophecy, or do you think the course of history is set in stone? Share your thoughts with me in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation going, and let's work together to shape a future that is brighter, more sustainable, and more united. Don't forget to like this video if you found it insightful and subscribe for more videos that will help you understand the world around you and how we can all play a part in improving it. Here's to continuing to learn, grow, and make a difference no matter our age. Together, we can be the change we want to see. Oh, Mini.